A man walked into the Arizona desert in 1891 and never came back, but what he left behind cost over 100 lives. Jacob Waltz made a choice in the 1870s that would echo through a century. He was a German immigrant, aging, sick, with nothing to show for decades in Arizona except rumors, so he decided to tell a story. To a woman named Julia Thomas, who cared for him as he lay dying in Phoenix, he spoke of a gold mine, hidden, rich, in the Superstition Mountains east of the city. He described landmarks, a natural stone formation shaped like a Dutch oven, a canyon, directions only he understood. Julia Thomas listened. She was practical, a businesswoman in a frontier town. When Waltz died in October 1891, she faced a decision: keep quiet or act on a deathbed confession from a man who'd spent 40 years in the Arizona wilderness. She chose to search. She hired men. She spent money. She believed him. That decision, Julia's choice to trust a dying man, launched what historians now call an obsession that killed at least 129 people. Some estimates run higher. Not all from violence, some from thirst, some from falls, some from madness. All because one woman decided to spend her life, and eventually her fortune, chasing gold that may never have existed at all. The Superstition Mountains rise abruptly from the Arizona plain, jagged and hostile, peaks reaching 300–600 feet, canyons with no water, heat that kills. It's Apache land, sacred land. The Apaches had fought the U.S. Army there for decades. By the 1890s, they'd been pushed out, but the mountains kept their reputation, a place where men vanish, a place where gold was said to sleep. Jacob Waltz's story had a crucial detail. The Dutchman, as locals called him, had supposedly found the mine around 1870. He'd been prospecting with another man, some accounts say a native guide. They struck it. Gold. But Waltz killed his partner, or the partner died. Accounts differ. What mattered was that Waltz alone knew the location, and he kept it secret for 20 years. Why keep it secret? That's the decision historians wrestle with. Fear of claim jumpers, fear of the law if the partner's death wasn't accidental, or maybe Waltz was superstitious. The Apaches believed the mountains were cursed. Maybe he did too. Whatever his reasoning, he took the location to his deathbed. He left only Julia Thomas with fragments, clues, a puzzle. Julia Thomas spent the next 30 years in the Superstition Mountains. She hired prospectors. She funded expeditions. She mapped canyons. She found traces, old campsites, scattered rocks that might have been markers or samples that seemed promising. She spent tens of thousands of dollars, a fortune for the era. Money she didn't have. She went into debt. Her life became the search. But Julia wasn't alone. Her story spread. The legend grew. Other prospectors heard about the Lost Dutchman's mine and made their own choice to gamble their lives on a rumor. By 1910, dozens of men were in the mountains. By 1920, hundreds. Each one believed they'd be the one to find it. Each one underestimated the cost. The deaths began quietly. In 1911, a prospector named Alicia Rivas was found dead in the mountains. No obvious wound, thirst probably. In 1931, another man vanished entirely. In 1947, 2 searchers were found shot dead. Some murders, some accidents, some suicides. The mountains kept their dead. Families never recovered bodies. The legend only grew stronger. By the 1950s, the obsession had calcified. The Lost Dutchman's gold mine was American folklore. Books were written. Maps were drawn, dozens of them, all different. Radio stations covered expeditions. Newspapers printed stories. The myth became more real than any historical fact, and more men kept going. More families lost fathers and sons to the desert. Here's what we know now after a century of searching. No one has ever found the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. Not one confirmed discovery. Geologists have studied the Superstition Mountains extensively. They've found no evidence of a rich vein that matches Waltz's description. No ore concentrations. No ancient workings that match the timeline. The mine, if it exists, has eluded every organized search. But here's what we also know. Waltz was a prospector in Arizona for decades. He had money, documented money, at the end of his life. Where'd it come from? That's the open question. Did he find gold? Maybe. Did he find enough to match the legend? Almost certainly not. Did he exaggerate as he lay dying? Absolutely. He was giving Julia Thomas a story, a hope, a reason to remember him. The real cost wasn't measured in gold. It was measured in lives, in families split apart, in time spent chasing shadows, in money burned on false hope. Over 129 documented deaths, probably more. All because one man in 1891 made a decision to tell a story, and one woman made the decision to believe it. Julia Thomas died in 1935, still searching. She was 80 years old. She'd spent her entire adult life in the desert. She'd spent a fortune. She'd hired hundreds of men, and she'd found nothing. On her deathbed, she had no confession to make, no map to leave behind. Just a life consumed by a riddle. The searches continued after her death. In the 1960s, 70s, 80s, metal detectors, helicopters, satellite imaging, modern technology that Waltz and Julia Thomas couldn't have imagined, and still, nothing. The Superstition Mountains gave up no gold. The legend proved more valuable than any ore. What we're left with is a question about human nature. Why do we chase stories? Why do we believe in the impossible when the evidence says no? The Lost Dutchman's mine never needed to be real. The legend was real. The obsession was real. The cost was real. And that's what makes this mystery so dark. It wasn't about gold. It was about what people are willing to sacrifice when they decide to believe. The Superstition Mountains still stand. Tourists hike there now safely in marked trails. Occasionally, someone still searches for the Lost Dutchman's mine, hobby prospectors, armchair detectives, believers. They won't find it, but they'll understand, standing in that landscape, why 100 men before them didn't give up, why they couldn't. Subscribe for more lost treasures that cost lives. There's a new obsession every week.